I am an associate prof and also the head of the nursing department, nursing and reproductive health department at the University of the Gambia. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to this very important one-day activity. And as it is the custom here in the Gambia, we start with prayers in whatever we are doing and also ends with prayer. So let's pray in our individual ways. Thank you. Next activity is to have opening remarks from Mrs. Fibian Aina Grandsanya. Mrs. Fibian, the floor is all yours.
Distinguished guest speakers, community and religious leaders, youth representatives, health workers, colleagues from academia and civil society, partners, friends, and respected facilitators. Good morning to you all. It is my honor to welcome you to this workshop on building common ground for community engaged research. Your presence today demonstrates your commitment to strengthen research that is not only academically sound, but also meaningfully inclusive and responsive to the needs of the community. This workshop aims to enhance participants' skills in ethical, culturally grounded, and genuinely collaborative community engagement. Through presentations and case discussions, we will explore how to build trust, share power, promote inclusion, align research with community priorities, and sustain long-term partnerships. Community engagement is central to producing relevant and impactful research. It ensures that the voices of community members, especially the most vulnerable, are heard, respected, and reflected in the evidence we generate. Today's gathering is powerful because it brings together researchers, community members, youths, health professionals, and development partners. This diversity reflects the very essence of community engaged research: listening, learning, and working together to generate knowledge that benefits everyone. We believe that communities are not subjects of research, they are partners in the research process. When we involve communities, especially young people and marginalized groups, we build trust, strengthen ownership, and ensure that the solutions we design are practical, culturally, and relevant, as well as sustainable. This workshop offers an opportunity to share experiences, examine challenges, and identify strategies to deepen collaboration between researchers, civil society, and the communities we serve. It is also a chance to empower young people to see themselves not only beneficiaries, but as contributors and future research leaders. I encourage all participants to engage fully, ask questions, challenge ideas, and share your insights. Our collective wisdom is one of our greatest strengths. I extend sincere appreciation to the organizers, partners, facilitators, and everyone who worked tirelessly to make this workshop possible. As we begin, I invite you to reflect on one important question. How can your community or organization actively contribute to research projects to ensure benefits for everyone involved? Once again, welcome, and I wish all of us a productive, insightful, and inspiring workshop. On that note, I would like to thank you all.
From the Honorable Minister of Higher Education, Science and Technology. Honored to be part of this very important occasion, disseminating knowledge to the community. very, very central to our ministry's core mandate. I'm tasked to give a welcoming statement and opening remarks. On behalf of the Ministry of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology, I particularly, as a Director of Research, I am honored to welcome each and every one of you to this very important dissemination workshop, theme enhancing community engagement in the Gambia. It is a privilege to join distinguished community leaders, researchers and academics, health professionals, graduate students, and members of ethics committee who shared a common commitment to strengthening community-centered research and practice. At the Ministry of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology, and at our Directorate of Research in particular, serve as a national driver to research excellence, policy alignment, and ethical standards. Our mission is to build robust systems that ensures research not only advance knowledge, but also respond meaningfully to the real needs, priorities, and lived experience of our community. Today's workshop speaks directly to that mission. Distinguished participants, esteemed partners, ladies and gentlemen, once again, it is a great honor to deliver an opening remarks for this one-day dissemination workshop on the same very important theme, enhancing community engagement in the Gambia. Allow me to begin by expressing sincere appreciation to the organizers, that is University of Maryland, Baltimore. The speaker is here. Center of Research and Advocacy on Women and Adolescent Health, and Gambia-9th. And to all of you who have taken time to attend and contribute to this important gathering. Community engagement is not an optional add-on to research. It is the foundation for ethical, impactful, and sustainable research systems. In the Gambia, where community structures, social cohesion, and trust remain strong, meaningful engagement is essential for ensuring that research is relevant, research is respectful, and responsive to the realities of the people seek to serve. As the Director of Research at the Ministry, we see community engagement as central to our mandate. Our role is to foster national research ecosystem that is inclusive, ethically grounded, and aligned with the country's development priority, particularly the National Research Policy from 2024 to 2029. This means strengthening participatory approaches, building mutual trust between researchers and communities, and ensuring that research findings translate into better policies, better services, and better outcomes for our citizens. Today's workshop brings together a unique mix of voice, I believe, community members, I believe, ethic committee, I'm sure they are here, researchers, scholars, and practitioners. This diversity is not only welcome, it is necessary because when communities are included from the beginning, research becomes more credible, more actionable, and more impactful. As we engage in dialogue today, I encourage us all to reflect on how we can shift from community participation to true community partnership, where communities are not just consulted, but empowered as co-creators of knowledge. Let us work together to strengthen the culture of ethical community-driven research in the Gambia. I am confident that the insights and discussions from this workshop will help advance our shared goals of building a research system that is grounded in trust, equity, and mutual respect. With this remark, I officially declare this workshop open and wish you all productive and inspiring deliberation. Thank you.
We are very pleased to be part of this history-making moment. We thank the organizers and all protocols duly observed and respected. Now, research is very vital in shaping policies, in developing plans that affects our lives on a daily basis. Yet too often, communities are used as mere subjects, just as has been alluded to. I think it's high time we begin to regard communities as partners in development. Now, drawing from many years of experience as a facilitator in key informant interviews, focus group discussions, community surveys, we've come to learn that there is need for sustained partnership, for sustained engagement between communities and researchers. Now, this can only be done if we can build trust, if there is understanding, if communities know what research is and what research is all about. So it's very important to build trust, because without trust, you cannot have openness. You cannot have authentic response from the communities. So trust is very, very vital. And in building trust, communities must know why research and what the research is all about. Now, research, we say, should be done with communities and not on communities. We don't want to be just mere respondents. We want to be part of the collection of data. We want to be part of the analysis of data. Therefore, it is very important when the research is being designed, when questions are being formulated, when questions are generated, it's good to get the communities to be involved in the whole process of designing research and research questionnaires. Because once that is done, then we have authentic and relevant questions. Then questions become very relevant and will take into consideration the priorities of communities, the concern of communities. Once communities realize that their concerns, their priorities will be addressed, will be looked into, then that develops the interest, that develops ownership, and that develops more involvement and more participation of communities. It is important to that communities help to co-define problems. When communities identify what matters most to them, they become very much engaged, and this will also help to guide questionnaires. This will help to guide research, and therefore, because in research, if the information is not authentic, if the information is not accurate, then obviously the policy will not be relevant, the planning will not be adequate, and the implementation will not be proper, and eventually the outcome will not be desirable. So it is very, very important to get communities to be part of designing. Now, too often, from experience, we've realized that at times, researchers will come to the community, collect the data, and then there is no feedback. And usually when there is no feedback, as time goes on, misconception, distrust, misgivings steps in. So that further research, other researches cannot get the participation or cooperation of communities. And when designing questionnaires, it's also important to look at the cultural dimension, look at the social barriers, look at the language and the expression. It is very important because if you don't speak the language of the community, if you don't take into consideration the cultural milieu of the community, you hardly get the data you want. You hardly get the results you want. So this is very, very, very fundamental. And before every research, it's important that we do enough sensitization, we do enough consultation, so that before the research, communities are aware as to where the research is going and why the research. And once they are aware why the research and where the research is going, the community perspective is integrated in the research, then it becomes easier. Now, to do this, because so many times researchers will come to communities and at each given time will engage different informants. And as a result, continuity does not happen. As a result, knowledge is not created, it is not enhanced, because anytime you come, you approach a different informant, you approach a different facilitator. Now, to address these kind of problems, it is good to have what I would call community research facilitators, trusted people in the community, people with integrity in the community, people who can engage with the community, and then give them the requisite training, give them the methodology, teach them the ethics of research. And since these people are part of the community, it's easier for them to build that trust. It's easier for them to build that bridge, that gap that exists between the researcher and the community. So it's very vital that we have research facilitation teams in communities who will sensitize the community before the actual research, who will be very instrumental in giving feedbacks, in sharing the results of research, who will sensitize the people or the community, so that the researcher, the community, the professional, the expert can find a common ground, a ground where they'll all be speaking the same language, taking the same journey towards shared ownership of knowledge that was created by all the parties to the research. So it's vital. Communities welcome researchers. Communities appreciate the work of researchers because they know no policy is vital or relevant without evidence-based. No policy, no planning can be developed without data. So communities are very much aware of this. But then the point is how to engage communities. And under certain circumstances, it's good to be informal, because that relaxes the community. At times when it is too formal, certain communities, because of experience, may not be very open So it's good to be informal at times when we go around to gather information or data from the communities. And now, finally, I think it is important for us to know that we are on a common journey, the common journey towards improving livelihood at national level, at community level. And all of us have a very vital role to play. At the level of the community, we can participate in data collection. At the level of the community, we can participate in analysis of data, and we can participate in the dissemination of results of research. We can participate in disseminating the purpose of research before actual research, before actual data collection. Because once that is clear in communities, then participation becomes real, the engagement becomes lasting, and there is trust, there is understanding, then we can embark on a common journey of shared ownership. Thank you.
M. Juf. I am, by background, a public health specialist. Now I am retired, but still working with SIAM Public Health Research and Development Center. I work for the Ministry of Health following my training in 1973, and until 2005, when I left the ministry. Then I joined SIAM. I worked for SIAM for some 5 years. Then I left. I joined ActionAid the Gambia. From 2010 to 2014, I left ActionAid. Then I joined UNAIDS, where I retired. After retirement, I went back to SIAM to support them in their endeavor. So that's my journey. I'm presenting this on behalf of SIAM. The director of SIAM is here. I am a member of the team, and I am responsible for programs. That's the outline of the presentation. I'm not wasting time on that. And I would just want to start by saying why NGO matter. SIAM became an NGO in 2001 as part of the Gates partnership. That's the Bill Gates. And before it became before it was called just SIAM, meaning Center for Innovation Against Malaria. Malaria was the key disease condition that SIAM was working on at the time, supported by the Gates Partnership under the Medical Research Council from 2001 to 2007. And then at the end of the Gates project, SIAM transformed. Everybody knew SIAM as SIAM. So we decided to keep the name and focus on more research into public health, doing HIV, TB, doing some health system research, policy development, working with communities as well. That was from 2007 to date. So why NGO matters? NGOs, they have a deep community root. As a public health practitioner, my primary activity at the time was at the community level. I was trained, I was posted at community level. I spent 25 years between LRR, North Bank, URR, and West Coast, working at the community level, doing public health work, disease prevention, disease control, what you now call SBCC, social behavioral change communication, which is at the time called health education, working with communities, etc. So NGOs have a deep community root. We try to establish trust and long-term presence in local communities. We have the cultural understanding, and we try to navigate tradition, language, and social structures at the community level by working with communities. Because we are there, we know the language, we communicate, we live with them every day, day in, day out, we are with them. The benefit is that we try to connect the academic goals with real community needs. This is what we try to do. As NGOs, we are knowledge brokers. Like I said, we connect community goals with real community needs. We often act as intermediaries between academic research and the community. We translate complex research findings into accessible language and format, which we share with communities. Just to give you an example, recently we have just concluded a 5-year project with the Ministry of Local Government, Water Resources. SAM was contracted under the African Development Bank to train community water committees. We train them under WASH, water sanitation and hygiene. We try to give them information and knowledge about how they should manage their water system, because we are being provided with boreholes, solar-powered boreholes, by the government of the Gambia through the African Development Bank. So we thought it was necessary to train them how to handle water, potable water, clean water, so that this will contribute to their healthy lives. Committees were formed, water committees. They were trained on different areas, on water, on hygiene, on sanitation, environmental, etc. Personal hygiene. For the last 5 years, we've been working with those communities. But what I want to say is that we did not just go and train them. As a seasoned public health officer trained, we know about water. Before we started, we did not just go and start training them. We work with the communities. We decided to do research to better understand what the people think about water, the way they handle water, the way they use water. So we did a countrywide survey, working with them, collect this information and data, brought it back, did analysis, which in a way strengthened and validated what we knew about water, what we were taught in universities and schools. Then we went back, we invited experts across the board from the Ministry of Health, from community development, from the communities, from other departments and ministries, Ministry of Education, etc. We sat back, look at this data, and try to design communication messages that would suit the people. Because we try to, as part of the survey, collect data on how do we communicate to them, how do we provide feedback, how do we try to make change. With all of this, maybe I cannot explain all the things that we did during question time. If there is any doubt, I can make some clarification. But we try to make sure that we better understand the communities, even having lived there, work with them, so that when we go back to train them, we know what to train, how to train, what to tell them, etc. So that's just an example of the last project we did on water, sanitation, and hygiene in 144 communities across the country. Building trust, legitimacy. We NGOs try to establish credibility. They do not just go and start working at the community level. Most of the people who work with NGOs have worked with communities for years. So that credibility, that trust has been there. It's been consistent engagement, shared history and relationships. We try to ensure local relevance, understanding local priorities. When I went to Mansakonko in 1978, I am born and brought up in Banjul. I went to school in Banjul. I only speak Wolof. But when I went to Mansakonko, I saw the need to learn Mandinka so that I can communicate. That's where I learned my Mandinka. If Peace Corps can come and learn our local languages, so how about me? So that was one of the reasons. We speak the language. Because I cannot go there, try to get an interpreter. The communication might be flawed. Some of the things I want to communicate might not be communicated well. So that was one of the reasons. So we leverage long-term relationships to ensure community feel ownership of research projects. And we try to increase trust and participation. The bridging action, research. We try to bring academic expertise, the funding and methodology that we use in research. Both research, usually you don't have to, depending on what the subject is, you may want to include those people who would provide the right information, just like my brother was trying to allude to. It will not be everybody. If you to do a research on maternal and child health, you need mothers, women 15 to 49 years, etc. This would be the focus. Those are the people you need. You may not need everybody. You may not need somebody who is under 15. You may not need a grandmother. So these are targeted based on the methodology and how you want to do your research. We do some translation, facilitation, and trust building. And at the community level, we need to understand and accept local knowledge, their participation, and get their ownership. In this day and age of gender, we try to be also gender responsive and culturally sensitive in our methodology. What is our contribution? We do community mobilization. It was mentioned here, sensitization of communities. We recruit participants, we organize meetings, and ensure diverse representation, depending on what the subject is. Like in water, I talk about the water committees, but we also have a focus. Who are the people who collect water, who transport water, who use water? Although we all use water, but if you go to the community, it is the women, the girls, and boys. Old men like me would sit at the bantaba, would hardly take a bucket, would hardly collect water. Sometimes they would help transport using donkey carts. Some, not all, but maybe some. You know, so our focus when it comes to water, it would be the women, the girls, and the young boys who would help their parents to collect water. It is the women who would use the water we drink at home. They're the ones who will collect it. They're the ones who will collect the water to launder clothes and other things, for bathing, um, for cooking, for cleaning, everything. So they're the ones who bear the body. They're the ones who would wake up at 5 o'clock to try and get water until early hours of the morning. Then they go to their farms. So, so community mobilization is one cultural transition, adopting research methods to local contexts and communication styles. Like was said, I mean, we need to know how we talk to the communities. We need to know our entry points at the community level. You cannot just go into the community just like that and start talking to people. The alcalo is there. The, um, the leaders are there, etc. You have to go through them. You have to involve them. Even within the research we do, like with the water, before even going into the community, we involve the Ministry of Local Government. We involve other departments. We involve the multidisciplinary facilitation teams. It talks about teams, but we work with MDFTs, who are representative from all other departments, who are also at the community level. With all these guides, we use that. We use the alcalo as our entry point and get into the community before we do anything. The elders are there, the youth leaders are there, the women's group leaders are there, the village support groups are there. All the other different communities are there. 5 minutes, okay. There is knowledge exchange. We do capacity building, and we facilitate policy uptake. Real impact, partnership. Participation is usually about 45%. Strongest trust is 3-4 times, and better implementation for most of the projects we do is over 70%. Indicators for real impact. We always want to make sure that whatever project we run, we extend beyond the pilot villages. Communities, we try to make sure that after donor funding, there is continuity. We mobilize groups, and we make sure that policies, institutions to support long-term progress. Balancing multiple demands. What are the challenges for NGOs? For example, right now we have finished the water project. That was our main project. Now, what do we do? There is no money. We're looking for money. We're looking for donors. We're writing proposals to try and get money. So funding is key. That's one of the main problems. Limited resources. Funding is a problem. Managing research expectations. protecting communities' interest, encouraging sustainability beyond the research, skills gap. Sometimes when at the end of a project, people would leave, like with the Ministry of Water Resources. The PCU is almost, all the members are almost gone because there is no new project. So they're leaving. So these are some of the problems. Best practices, early engagement, fair compensation, capacity building, and co-creation and long-term commitment. Looking forward, strengthening partnership, that's one of our investment. We build networks and prioritize impact. Key takeaway, NGOs are not just passive implementers. They are active co-creators of knowledge. Their role is bridging research and communities, ensure that evidence is context-specific, trusted, and actionable, ultimately leading to more sustainable health and development outcomes. Together, we create change. NGOs are essential partners in ethical, effective community engaged research. Research that honors community wisdom and build lasting virtue. I thank you.
That's science. So we see the topic, advancing ethical collaboration in indigenous and local knowledge. ILK will always appear in the presentation. Then we are trying to strengthen this link with our community engagement and engaged research. So the background and the rationale so that we understand what we are looking at. The ILK holds the generation of wisdom in agriculture, health, and climate. You know that the local communities, they have built their sustainability strategies over the years, even before the science comes in, even before research comes in. They've been sustaining their community with this indigenous local knowledge. These communities protect over 80% of the world's biodiversity from the references we see. Yet, this knowledge in research is often extractive because people will not want to identify that they get it from the local communities, and at the same time they are using those knowledge to make publications and all that. So there is they lack consent, there is misappropriation of knowledge, and also there is disregarding for cultural values. The ethical engagement with indigenous local knowledge is very essential for justice, for sustainability, and for equitable collaboration. So how to approach indigenous and local knowledge? There are two different things. We have the indigenous knowledge and we have the local knowledge. Indigenous knowledge are rooted in the culture of the society, the particular community, while the local knowledge, it reflects the adaptation. Maybe if someone has come into this community, is not an indigene, but he has lived more than 50 years in that location. So that person is now having the local knowledge of that location. Okay. We look at the problem of the problem the presentation is trying to correct. Current indigenous knowledge research faces persistent ethical challenges. There is inadequate or absence of informed consent, and when it comes to most of them, there is participation, tokenist participation, where they come and they give them some tips and they take them their information and will never come back again to give them feedback. So there is exclusion from governance. They are not part of the authority of the research. There is misrepresentation and cultural loss. some of the research findings might work against the culture of the community. Then limited or no benefit sharing after, during and after the research finding. There is colonial power dynamics, which is embedded in research design, in the sense that researchers will feel they are the all-knowing, and at the same time, they are taking this knowledge from the local communities without giving them their due diligence. So there is colonial power dynamics. There is violation of indigenous data sovereignty also. Our objective here is to present, to examine how integrating communities engaged research, the principles of community engaged research into indigenous knowledge research, just to strengthen the ethical practices and improve outcomes across these 5 key domains, which are epistemic justice and knowledge pluralism, on cultural integrity and community standard, on the power relation and relational accountability, on the indigenous data, and also on the informed consent as a relational collective process sovereignty. So, ethical foundation. We all know from ethics, these are the foundation we rely on, which has to do with autonomy, when you respect decision making rights of the participants. We talk of justice, where fair distribution of benefits and burdens are shared, and there is beneficence, where you promote community well-being. Then non-maleficence is when you avoid harm, exploitation, and misappropriation. So this is the foundation for every ethical actions. Now, there is a limitation with this when it comes to Africa and our setting. This principle centers individuals, not collective, making them insufficient for indigenous local knowledge context that prioritize communal decision making. You know, when you come, most times it's the community leaders that consent for a research to be done in the community and not individuals. In contexts like the Gambia and other African communities, there is weak safeguards which exhibits harm, undermining trust and outcome. So if we completely rely on that, there will be some kind of harm, and also trust issue will be there, and there will be the outcome will not be what is expected in terms of our African setting. Now we have community engaged research. Let's look at what it's all about. It's an approach where researchers and communities, they work together as equal partners throughout the entire research process. Nobody is having an upper hand against the other. It rejects extraction research and emphasizes shared power, mutual benefit, and long-term relationship. If I have equal authority in the research as you the researcher has, then we have our voices together to make a change. The core principle of community engaged research is shared governance. When the community has when the community has equal size, equal opportunity to be the part of the research. I am part of the proposal, you are part of the proposal. Two of us design the proposal. It doesn't have to be one-sided. There is reciprocity. Both researchers and community benefits. No one is exploited. There is co-learning. And here, knowledge flows in both directions. Each partner teaches each other. The researcher will learn from the community, and the community will learn from the researcher. There is mutual trust and respect because we are all partners. We have equal opportunity in the research. There is transparency, accountability, and respect for community. Then the core principle of community engaged research continues. It has a long-term engagement plan, because you continue to build relationship beyond the project, and they are ongoing and then transactional and not transactional. So what does that mean? That before and after the research has been done, the researchers and the community has developed a strong relationship which will continue, and then there won't be at the end of the day, both of them will have a strong tie. The community priorities first, because you must respond to community needs, the values, and their lived realities, what they have passed through in the real life experience. That is what you assess. As capacity strengthening, during this period, both the researchers and the community members will develop themselves. They will build a lot of capacity. In terms of leadership, the community members, like we talk about the community advisory board, they would have developed a lot of capacity in terms of how to bargain in the research process. So that will strengthen their capacity. The key framework guiding this, the indigenous local knowledge. Now, for indigenous local knowledge, we have the CARE principle. This CARE principle is focused on collective benefit, authority to control, and responsibility, and also ethics. This CARE principle prioritize mainly the collective benefit of the community. That is for the indigenous local knowledge. Then the SCREEN principle is culturally grounded. So it focuses on the culture of and the tradition of that community. So they are more like a guideline that helps in indigenous local knowledge research. Then the OCAP framework is another one. I'm trying to hurry because I know my time is going. So the OCAP framework has to do with ownership, control, access, and possession of the community data. So this is another principle that is in the indigenous local knowledge research. Then the two I see, this one has to do with both the community members, the researchers identifying the community members and as the system of knowledge, and also the scientific part of the knowledge as also part of the knowledge. So they value indigenous and Western knowledge system equally without assimilating one into another. So even if there is a scientific interpretation of any indigenous knowledge, the indigenous knowledge will stand the same line with the scientific interpretation, giving each of them equal space in the research. The free, prior, and informed consent is another guideline, which requires that there will be communal consenting. It requires iterative, cultural, contextualized consent driven by community leaders. Okay? Since our normal traditional consenting is individualized, but in our communities, we are connected with our community in a cultural manner that everybody must align to the leadership of the community. So all these frameworks move research away from extraction and towards reciprocity, equity, and shared authority. So looking at now the two, which is in the indigenous local knowledge, and the integration with community engaged research. The strategy is that communities in all phases, both in agenda setting, data collection, analysis, and dissemination, will work together with the researchers. So we say that community engaged research strengthens indigenous local ethics by involving communities in all phases, from agenda setting to data collection and analysis, and also in dissemination. This table tries to explain the strategy. One is that there will be early partnership and need assessment. So before research is proposed, there will be need assessment and there will be this early partnership between the researchers and the communities. So when that happens, we connect to the indigenous local knowledge ethical link, which is for free, prior and informed consent, and also at the end we build trust with the identify gaps like funding and training in this initial stage. So those gaps will be inculcated into the research. There's institute dialogue and the indigenous local knowledge teams. So this team, this is linked to the 2I team, which has to connect both the seeing researchers' knowledge and indigenous knowledge as being equal and none supersedes the other. Though when that happens, there will be equitable integration and we will avoid tokenism. Then we have forum and peer exchange. We connect it to the care and also the OCAP guideline. And when that happens, we will improve the agendas. There will be service capacity building. Then we have the cultural protocols. Most cultures in Africa is connected to these 7 sacred teachings, which are love, respect, courage, honesty, wisdom, humility, and truth. So if we connect that to the indigenous local knowledge link, we'll be connecting to the screen plus congruence, which has to do with the culture. So at the end, we'll protect sacred knowledge and redress inequalities. Okay. So now this is a cycle which we try to develop to connect the indigenous local knowledge and the community engaged research collaboration. So at the end, at the beginning, you establish respectful relationship. At that time, everybody will come together, both the researchers and the community. Then you define the research priorities. So you see this part is for the community. They can form different teams, leaderships. While the researchers come with their end, they come together and develop a particular research priority. Then we have the guide decision making. So each of these priority and will come together and they will decide on the way to go in the research, the methodology and everything around it. You maintain the knowledge authority, recognizing each knowledge, both Western knowledge and indigenous local knowledge. Then we operationalize the values and transform this research into a model. At the end, we advance justice. So that is what that cycle is explaining. So when you integrate these two, indigenous local knowledge and community engaged research, by principle, we have achieved, the model will achieve reciprocity, to achieve governance, it will achieve co-learning, long-term engagement, and data sovereignty. So now, at the end of the day, we have these key action places where we would have touched, which has to do with epistemic justice and knowledge pluralism. In that, when you add ethical indigenous local knowledge with community engaged research, we recognize the knowledge as epistemologically equal. There will be the 2I seeing will promote coexistence instead of assimilations. There will be valuing knowledge as the indigenous local knowledge will be valued as part of the core research. That is where you will see that the community advisory board will have their names in the publications. Okay, Then this will enhance the methodological richness and strengthens global knowledge system. Then coming to the cultural integrity and community standard. When respecting this means protecting cultural protocols, the sacred knowledge and community norms. So what it requires is a collective decision-making structure where prior informed consent as an ongoing dialogue. So it's not a one-time thing. If at the end and then the community said they are no longer part of it, they are free to also stop the research. So it's not going to mortgage the community. There is also cultural informed research method also. Then the community engaged research will amplify this cultural integrity through this long-term engagement and the shared agenda setting. So the difference here is that instead of we just going there and then taking the knowledge and also just recognizing them, they will be part of the research and from development to the end, and at the end they will because they are part of it, they will continue to see what the research has translated to. So there is this long-term engagement established in the structure. Then power relation and relational accountability. um, because now there is a balance sort of, because you have put two of them as being equal in the research, they will share in the governance structure and co-leadership of the research. There is transparency in roles and then benefits and expectations. There is reciprocity and responsibility, and there is also long-term partnership beyond the project timeline. So this will move the research from just transactional to relational. So at the end, we don't just need to go in and come out. So we'll form a long-lasting relationship with the community. Then we have the informed consent as a relational collective process. The Western consent models will only look at individual permission. But when we look at indigenous local knowledge consent practice, we emphasize on collective decision-making, the iterative ongoing consent, relational trust building. There is also contextual and spiritual consideration, because a lot of our activities in the communities are rooted in the spiritualism of the community. Then we have this at the end, community engaged research will strengthen this process through constant communication and shared priorities and also transparency. So we have the indigenous data sovereignty, and on its own, what that happens when we look at CARE and OCAP, which provide mechanisms to uphold sovereignty. The community engaged research will reinform this sovereignty by centering community authorities in all research phases. Okay, now, what are the key messages we are giving? We say that indigenous local knowledge will strengthen the community engaged research by embedding deeper cultural relationship, relational and ethical accountability into engagement process. Together, when you have the both, you create a model of research that is ethical, is equitable, culturally grounded, community-driven, sustainable. So integrating these ethics with in a practical pathway is that we co-develop research agendas with the community, we establish shared governance board, we use community benefits agreement, we embed indigenous local knowledge holders as co-investigators of the research. We implement relational consent process. We ensure sustainable long-term partnership, prior capacity strengthening, and community ownership. And at the end, we conclude that ethical indigenous local knowledge research requires moving from extractive practice to collaborative, mutual benefit partnership, and integrating indigenous local knowledge ethics with community engaged research will strengthen justice and equity. It will strengthen cultural preservation. It will lead to sustainability of intervention, community empowerment, and global knowledge inclusivity. So I leave you with this word, that ethics is not compliance, it is relationship, reciprocity, and transformation.
Silverman is a clinical ethicist and educator who holds the position of a professor of medicine at the University of Maryland School of Medicine. He received his medical doctorate from the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine and a master's degree in bioethics from Georgetown University. He serves as the principal investigator for several Fogarty International Center or NIH-sponsored research ethics training program across the Arab, Middle East, and Morocco. Additionally, he is a co-investigator for the Fogarty program in the Gambia. Dr. Silverman has mentored numerous international trainees, guiding them in refining their research projects and achieving significant advancement in the field of research ethics. At the University of Maryland Medical Center, he chairs the Ethical Advisory Committee, which performs ethics consultations, provides ethics education, and advises on hospital policies concerning clinical ethics. At the University of Maryland Graduate School, Dr. Silverman directs a 12-credit online certificate program in research ethics. So in a nutshell, that's Prof. Henry Silverman, and then let's appreciate his African.
We heard many interesting words this morning: trust, reciprocity, sustainability, capacity building, and gender empowerment, and we'll hear other key words throughout the afternoon, and especially with the small group discussions. This workshop has been more than 1 year in the planning, and people say that it's not the destination, it's the journey that counts. Well, I want to say that this workshop is not the destination, it's part of the journey, because it would be a shame if we left this conference without follow-up plans to enhance the concept of community engagement research in the Gambia, and we'll say more about that after the group discussion. So I'm going to talk about community voices in research, insights from Gambian researchers and community leaders on building meaningful ethical partnerships in community engaged research. So a few slides on the background. Community engagement in research is increasingly recognized as a critical component of global health research. Community engaged research occurs at various levels, as you all have heard already from this morning, from informing and consulting to co-designing programs and empowering community members to share authority in decision-making processes. This inclusive approach builds trust, strengthens relationship, and promotes equitable power and resource distribution. Now, the problem is that despite widespread acceptance, implementing community-engaged research is challenging due to structural barriers and practical obstacles. Cultural and linguistic differences, varying literacy, resource constraints, distrust, power imbalances affect participation and influence, and we'll talk more about that during the small groups. These factors present distinct challenges for engaging communities, especially in low and middle income countries, necessitating tailored approaches that address these specific barriers to ensure successful and impactful community engagement. So we have a research gap. While previous approaches with community engagement has occurred in the Gambia, it has primarily involved informing and consulting with the community. The landscape suggests an ongoing need for deeper, more integrated collaboration, and this is what we hope to further enhance community engaged research from this workshop. So our goal, more research is needed to understand the barriers and challenges involved with community engaged research in the Gambia, such that community engagement could operate with improving health outcomes in the Gambia. So to address this research gap, we obtained an NIH grant to put on this workshop and do interview studies. So our first objective was to obtain a stakeholder analysis, obtain the perspectives of stakeholders who have an interest in community engaged research to ensure that everyone, including the community, is properly involved. So what we did in-depth interviews, 6 to 8 of the following groups: community leaders and elders, religious leaders, government and public health officials, academic researchers, NGOs, and SROs. And a lot of you who participated in the interview process is here today, and I want to thank you very much for being a part of the process. We also did focus group discussions, women's group, youth groups, and healthcare workers as well. So it was a comprehensive approach. Now, our data analysis, the interviews were transcribed. We used what's called a Max QDA software to organize the codes. A few people coded the transcripts and came to consensus, and we developed thematic analysis and achieved consensus on the themes. Our second objective was to facilitate a workshop that brings together community members, stakeholders, and research to build common ground for community engaged research. So that was our 2 objectives of the NIH grant. So in the next few minutes, I'd like to share with you results, some of the results of the analysis of the interviews, whereby several themes were uncovered. So the first one involved power dynamics and legitimacy. Community engaged research in the Gambia begins with understanding and honoring local power structures. This hierarchical respect is not merely procedural, it reflects deep cultural values about authority, community cohesion, and proper social conduct. Part of the, I want to share with you some of the quotes that led to this theme. When we get to a community, we have to reach out to the Alkalolu. What's that? Alkalus. Okay. Thank you very much. You cannot access community members unless you go through the local authority. And there were other quotes regarding power dynamics and legitimacy. If you don't engage the alkalus or the chiefs, don't laugh at me, it becomes problematic because people will ask, have you talked to our alkalus, right? That's what you said. What? Alkalu. Okay. Yes, we're all alkalus. Okay. Another theme was trust, ethics, and transparency. Trust, and we heard that word before this morning, trust is the cornerstone of effective community-engaged research, yet it remains fragile and easily broken, the trust. Researchers, one quote from the interviews on the right-hand side, researchers sometimes come with promises, telling people they will bring machines of development. When communities do not see this, they lose trust. Another quote, if you twist their opinions, there is not going to be any trust. And another quote, you must go back to the community with the results. If you don't return the results, they will say, what is the essence of talking to you? Another theme was relevance and community value. Community engaged research must address questions that communities themselves recognize as being important. When research agendas are designed without community input, they risk missing the mark entirely, solving problems that researchers find interesting rather than challenges that communities actually face. A few quotes that demonstrate this theme. We may be successful in our implementation, but are we really creating impact? Sometimes a community does not need what you bring. If you sit at the central level and plan without them, it may not work. Communities want to see how research reflects their real problems, otherwise they lose interest. Another theme is concerning working with community advisory boards. Community advisory boards serve as vital bridges between researchers and communities, providing guidance grounded in local knowledge and cultural understanding. Some quotes, when you enter a community, understand the local structure. People want you to respect their leadership before they can open up to you. Research is more credible when guided by community representatives who can hold researchers accountable to community interests. Another theme was knowledge, co-creation, and empowerment. True community engagement recognizes that communities possess valuable knowledge systems that complement academic expertise. Research becomes richer when it creates space for dialogue between different forms of knowledge, scientific and local, formal and experiential. And this takes up Agnes's phrase, 2I seeing, I think it was, and this is essence co-creation and co-empowerment. Communities may, no, not yet. Communities may challenge interpretations, offer alternative perspectives that strengthens the research. Some quotes that demonstrates this. Communities have their own form of knowledge that you also have to appreciate. Communities are more interested in being part of the process than just the outcome. What community engaged research means to me means power to the people. When they are involved in the research and the planning, it builds ownership, and I might add, enhances the prospects of sustainability. Another theme was barriers and inequalities. Community-engaged research faces practical barriers that can exclude voices and limit participation. Geographic distance, transportation costs, and time constraints. disproportionately affect rural and marginalized communities. These are structural barriers. Researchers must proactively address these inequalities and these structural barriers to ensure broad participation. Some quotes, sometimes the distance is too far, but you also want to ensure that everybody's opinion is captured. With this generation of social media, people are scared and don't want their stories put in the limelight. I don't want to hear my story on social media tonight, okay? Another theme was improving engagement strategies. Start early with the planning, map community leadership, find entry points, respect local knowledge, and communicate in local languages. Some quotes representative of this theme: meet the youth leaders, women leaders, traditional leaders, explain your motives. The Gambian people also have their own form of local knowledge. You must accept that and work with it. Look for an entry point, your guide in the community. That's what makes everything easier. Another theme was expanding the definition of success. Success in community-engaged research extends far beyond data collection and publication outputs. True success manifests when communities actually participate in research processes, feel ownership over outcomes, and recognize themselves in the findings. Illustrious quotes for this theme: people are more interested in being part of the process than the outcome. Success is when communities participate, when they own it. If the community recognizes themselves in the research, that alone is success. Sustained collaboration, not just data collection, is the measure of success. Another theme about training needs and capacity building: communities need capacity building to participate meaningfully in the planning, implementation, and decision making. Communities need training that is co-designed with them and reflects their actual needs and priorities. And an illustrious quote: training builds ownership. When they are involved in the research and the planning, it helps them to be more active. And also, it helps you in the sustainability of whatever project you are taking to the communities. And it helps you refers to the researchers. Dissemination, amplification, and more importantly, sustainability. Work through chiefs and alcaldes who pass information through established community structures, ensuring findings reach all community members. Sustained engagement builds trust, enables follow-up research, and ensure community benefits will continue in the future. Some quotes: the best way is through the chiefs. If they pass the information to the alcaldes and then to the community. We use WhatsApp groups and social media to spread the findings, a way of disseminating the results. When they are involved, it helps them to be more active, and it helps in the sustainability of the project. That is power in the hands of the community. And with that, I appreciate your attention, and